Welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. I'm Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about It Chapter 2.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. And don't forget to review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Today we are talking about forgetting yourself.
How fear can control you.
Our Saints of Show.
And then we'll give you ways that you can join the conversation.
So, if you have not yet seen it, it came out last year, so you had plenty of time. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert, though, so those of you who haven't.
Yeah, I'm sure most of you by now know that we talk about the entirety of the things that we review.
Yes. So our summary and review. 27 years later, the losers come back and face off against Pennywise for a second time and possibly the final time.
Man, I don't know what else to add to that. Along the way, they discover that they haven't gotten over their fears as adults. And, yeah. I don't know. You pretty much summed it up. I don't know what else to say.
That's a pretty quick summary.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't like it as much as chapter 1. Mm-hmm. I felt it was a little rushed. Even though it did have a pretty long run time.
I was about to say, it was like, 2.5 hours?
Yeah. It just, I don't know. There was just a lot that I felt could have been done and should have been done, but wasn't done.
I think for me... Oh, sorry. Are you done?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It just felt rushed, so I can't really say that I liked it, but I mean, it was enjoyable. It entertained. But
yes.
It wasn't as scary as the first one.
Yes, that's my part of my review, is that it wasn't as scary as the first one, but I think that's because we kind of knew what to expect from Pennywise.
Yeah. Since
we kind of got a glimpse of what he could do in the first one. So, I mean, it's not their fault that everybody watched it already and kind of knew what to expect when it comes to, jump scares and that kind of stuff. And, I mean, to their credit, the scares that they have in It Chapter 2 are still pretty revolutionary compared to scares even, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, compared to the Tim Curry television miniseries.
Oh, yeah, no, it's by far scarier than that. Yeah, and I was scared of that thing as a kid, too. But, yeah, times are changing. Kids aren't as sensitive as they used to be.
But Tim Curry is, just a fantastic actor. So you can't, say he's not terrifying as Pennywise.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, so was that your review?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, and I think that there are some very important points that are illustrated in the second chapter. Since we already did talk about the first chapter, it was important for us to kind of come back and talk about it the second time around.
Well, plus we like to, do a satisfactory sandwich.
Yeah,
you have to complete it.
Yeah, complete our thoughts. This one, I really feel... There's a lot that deals with identity, but I'm going to steer away from that because it's a different season and a different topic for me to harp on, I guess.
Yes.
Today I'm going to talk about forgetting yourself. Is that, a lot of these characters are facing their trauma, sometimes for the first time. And a lot of them, they didn't really deal with it when they were kids, when they were children. These were... some things like growing up and having your period, being from an abusive household for Bev. For Bill, it was the stuttering and being responsible for his brother. For, let's see.
Eddie, it was him being sick. Well, yeah. Him not really being sick, but his mom, forcing him and, making him believe that he was sicker than he really was.
I was really kind of thinking of Richie, though, with Richie and his kind of attraction to other boys was kind of a thing that he was afraid of, like his attractions, and I mean that's very typical for us as human beings, that we were afraid of kind of who we are, on the inside. Mm-hmm. Like some of these things that we get into these these situations that, we get just so terrified of our reaction to them that we try to we run away. We wall ourselves off from those situations ever again, that we don't want to face them. In other words, we create doors, we create walls, trying to keep it away. However, for these characters, they really were raised by the demons. And this is kind of what Pennywise comes to represent and really is for them, because Pennywise is that. He feeds on their fears. And, there is no kind of allegory about it, because he's both symbolic for the real world, but also for them, it's reality. So I want to ask, has there been a situation in your life that you were just so terrified of your reaction to the situation that you wanted to run away from it? You didn't ever want to be in a situation like that again, for fear that you would react that same way?
Well, so this story is going to be something that I haven't told a lot of people. So now I'm going to tell the whole podcast world, I guess, all of the internet. But when I was in the first grade, my little sister and I were arguing. We had each gotten like one of those doodle pads where if you like lift up the first page, it like gets rid of your drawing and you can put it back down and draw again. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So we each had gotten one of those, and my little sister had lost her pen, and she was insisting that my pen was her pen. And I was like, no, that's my pen, not your pen. Anyway, so we were arguing about it, and I was making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and she just wouldn't drop it because I knew that pen was my pen, and it wasn't hers, but she was still insisting it was hers. And I got irritated, and I threw the butter knife at her, and it hit her in the face right below the eyeball, and she had to get like 3 or 4 stitches. And I, of course, was terrified. One, because, I threw a knife at somebody, and I was scared about how my parents were going to react. I was scared about the consequences that were going to happen. There was a lot of, I didn't know how bad I hurt her. She ended up having to go to the hospital to get stitches. So that was scary too. Yeah. Maybe that's why my relationship with my mom isn't so great, because of that.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think you've thrown a knife at somebody since. So,
no, I have not.
I don't think it's.
I haven't even thrown an axe.
Well, that's good too. But have you really kind of made sure that you don't put yourself in situations like that, where you make sure that you're not angry when you're using a knife?
Well, not that. It's more of if I feel like I'm getting to the point to where I'm going to explode, I need to leave.
Okay.
Or I cocoon.
Yeah.
And when I say cocoon, I mean legit take a blanket and cocoon myself. Miguel's seen it. It's a real cocoon. So as a way to not only, to protect myself mostly, because I'm not too scared I'm going to hurt somebody physically anymore. I was in the first grade. I didn't have the best tools on how to handle emotions, so I can't be too hard on myself.
Well, I don't think that our society gives us the best tools. They don't teach us how to interpret stories very well.
Yeah. But my parents blamed it on the Power Rangers.
Well, yeah, the Power Rangers can be responsible for a lot of bad things in the world.
But
let's just say that the Power Rangers are to blame.
I don't think it was the Power Rangers. I think, honest to goodness, it was my little sister was being my bratty little sister, trying to get her way, and I was irritated by it. So,
well, yeah, okay, I'm going to get off the Power Rangers.
I was about to say, how many people do we know watch Power Rangers, and have they thrown knives at people? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, correlation does not equal causation.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, we kind of get into these cycles of being afraid of those situations. And for me, my own situation was fear of being found out. just being a regular human being, for having feelings and emotions and just
And
being
faults.
a human being, for for having faults. And, like I've brought up before, is that, being raised in my extremely conservative evangelical Christian household, it was a lot of that just fear of being a regular human being. Like, I needed to be better than that. So that kind of put me into the cycle where trying to be perfect became this weird thing that I hid all my faults and everything else. And like, I see myself in each of these characters, because each of them has something where they're hiding their trauma in order to just try to survive in some ways. Now, this is something that I found was pretty significant, was that Mike, that he had this ritual to get out of the cycle. That it was a magic ritual. I'm bringing in my theme for the season is magic. So they have this magic ritual which brings the deadlights back, and they trap it in that pyramid box thingy. Mm-hmm. But it didn't work the way that he was telling everybody it was supposed to work. And that's the thing, is that with all of our rituals and with everything else that we know as human beings, that we can never really break cycles the way that other people have broken them. Like, this is why I don't get, like, people reading biographies of millionaires thinking, oh, maybe I'll glean some tips from them. No, they got to be a millionaire by writing a book about how being a millionaire, was great or something. That's you're not going to break the cycle the same way they did.
Well, and also, too, that brings up something else that I was learning about today, actually this week, that when it comes to addiction, the reason why a lot of the recovery places don't work very well and they have such a high rate of people returning to using again is because that they have like a one-size-fits-all kind of idea for their patients, when everybody has different reasons for why they started using in the first place, why they continue to use, what triggers them to, use, essentially. So you can't have a one-size-fit-all type of scenario because everybody's story is different.
Oh, exactly. And this is for each of them. This is what they found during that ritual, is that they all found their own way of beating back their fear. Now, granted, I did not like that they had to bully Pennywise to get him down to size like that. That for me, it's kind of like, oh yeah, you got to fight fire with fire kind of thing. And no, that's not the way you break the cycle. You don't continue the cycle to break the cycle.
Yeah.
I understand what the director was trying to say, that you've got to find a way of becoming bigger than the thing that you're facing. Mm-hmm.
But how bigger are they if they're doing the exact same thing he was doing?
Exactly. And that's where it gets into naming it. There was, my director in college, when I was doing theater courses along with my youth ministry courses, my director would always say there is power in naming something. And I agree with that. And I think that's not even with religious rituals or anything else like that, but knowing something's name, knowing what to call it, gives you some way of being bigger than it, is saying that you're able to say its name. You're able to face it one-on-one kind of thing.
Like Rumpelstiltskin?
Sure. And knowing his name, how to spell it backwards, was a big thing in King's Quest, the original one for me on computer. So that's how I learned how to spell. So, was those text-based games. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was a rabbit hole that I don't want to go down right now. But naming things does give you power over something. Like knowing what the diagnosis is gives you power over something. Mm-hmm. It lets you know how to fight it. It lets you know how to, research it and get to know it a little bit better, get to know yourself a little bit better.
Gives you the possibilities of the outcomes too.
Exactly. And and for them, I think that's what it was naming Pennywise is naming the things that they were afraid of and facing them instead of bullying, but it just came across as bullying.
Yeah.
So I think it could have been done differently. That's all I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So has there been a time in your life when you were able to be bigger than your fear?
I know this might sound kind of silly to most people, or maybe not. I don't know, because I know a lot of people who have this anxiety too. But this last week, not only did I call the doctor to make an appointment, I actually went to the doctor the same week. And that's kind of a big deal for me because, one, it's really hard for me to actually take care of myself when I feel like others around me need to be taken care of. Like something I'm working out in therapy, but I don't value myself as much as I value others. So, yeah, I'm going to therapy for it.
All right. Well, and that's something that I am extremely proud of you for, that you saw something, you were bigger than it. You were afraid of something and you conquered that fear this week. Well, granted, it's something that you're going to need to do over again.
I was about to say, I have to call another doctor in order to make another appointment, which I haven't done, which I was supposed to do on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. But, hey, we're naming it now. We're giving you the opportunity to be brave again. For me, it's just naming that quest for perfection is knowing that I will never be perfect. Is that knowing that that's what I was striving for my entire life, and this is why I hid. And so many of my anxieties and my disorders are just kind of based around that. Is that learning that I don't have to be perfect, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's completely okay. And I hope that
it's normal, even.
Yeah, I hope that whoever listens to the podcast will, like, if you take nothing else from us, take this. It's okay that you're not okay. Mm-hmm. That's all you need to take away from us. So.
Yep. All right. So now my turn?
Yes.
Okay. We are great at segues.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm going to talk about how fear can control you, even though they kind of controlled fear at the end of the movie a little bit, the majority of the time, and also during the flashbacks, because there's a few flashback scenes as well, too. It was still very clear that fear definitely controlled their lives in some way. Mm-hmm. It, as in like the monster It or Pennywise, uses fear to gain control over the kids. And then he also uses fear too to gain power over the adults as well when they come back. And then I kind of wonder too, in this movie, the first murder that we see is another adult. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that is one of Pennywise's tactics to try to send, fear again towards the Losers Club who are now adults. Like, hey, I don't just prey on kids anymore. Like, look at me getting these adults. And that's kind of scary too. Mm-hmm. Like, they're no longer safe. He's coming after anybody. It's not just kids anymore. So how have you used fear? Not like Pennywise, but have you used fear to your advantage? Not, to the extent of Pennywise, but even something small.
Well, even then, thinking about it, it's one of those things that you don't really want to talk about because you fear how other people are going to see you then.
Do you want me to do mine first? Because mine's pretty easy going.
Well, and there are times when I don't think I did it intentionally, but, I look back on my life and I'm like, oh my goodness, what, I tried to, terrorize teenagers into going to church, using fear as, oh, your life is going to turn out horribly if you don't do this kind of way. But I know it wasn't intentional, but it was it's kind of creepy when you start to think about it.
Yeah. It's kind of manipulative.
Yeah.
Yeah. With mine, it isn't as serious, but I know that there's a group of parents out there who won't agree with us. But I have definitely used Peter's fear of not getting any Christmas presents as a way to make him like pick up the living room.
That was intentional too.
What?
Like, we both know that he's not going to not get presents.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody knows that. But just the fact that he doesn't know,
Yeah.
you know, call me a terrible parent, but I'm as terrible as every other parent on this earth who also does that. So.
Well, when children believe things in black and white, like that's the way they view the world, is concrete. Is there's no abstract in it. That you don't develop that until like midway through middle school, or like sometimes even in high school, that you can begin to really get abstract concepts. I think it's not bad. Mm-hmm. It's definitely not good, but it works for 3-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, he's even right now asking about the tooth fairy. He tried to convince me that he lost a tooth in the very back. And I was like, no, you didn't lose a tooth. And he was like, yes, the tooth fairy stole it from me. And I'm like, no, you did not lose a tooth. Anyway.
Our child will try to convince you that his view on things is correct.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
On everything.
Yep. Including the idea that he's going to become Chase, the firefighter dog.
No, Chase is the
police
dog.
It's Marshall, the firefighter.
Marshall is the firefighter dog.
Yeah, he's going to become Marshall when he grows up. Oh, also,
but we're talking about It Chapter 2
and
not Paw Patrol.
I was going to talk about the farmer, but we can add that in afterwards.
All right.
If we still have time. We'll tell you about the farmer. Anyway, so no one from, the littlest of people all the way to the biggest, most ruthless dictator is completely fearless. Everybody has some kind of fear in some kind of shape or form, period. I don't care who you are. You have some kind of fear. Mm-hmm. And not even, even Pennywise is fearful, really, if you think about it, because he ends up terrorizing the losers and trying to remind them of what he's capable of because he is fearful of them.
Oh, yeah.
He's fearful of what they can do. He knows that they came very close to completely defeating him the last time. And he's scared of what could happen. And so he's trying to, push them to their breaking point to get them to, I guess, for him to destroy them.
And these creatures for Stephen King are very similar in shape and fashion, is preying upon emotions, emotion vampires.
Like Dementors?
Yes, kind of. Mm-hmm. But more feeding on different kinds of emotion. Well, I said I was going to try to limit this, so this is the only one, I promise. In the Dark Tower series, D'Angelo.
Wait, hold on. People have spoiler alerts. Not everybody has watched it, or we want to know.
It's in the books.
Okay.
It's in the very last book too. But there's one of these creatures, and this creature preys upon laughter. So it's that laughter that feeds that monster, and this one, Pennywise, feeds on fear.
That's kind of terrifying. Anyway, talking about terrifying, let's talk about fear in real life. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's a lot of fear out there, especially now in today's world and climate. And fear has been used for a long time, especially in the world of politics. We constantly see it in, they're going to take your guns away. Right there is putting fear in your face of, they're going to take your possessions away, making you fearful of that. They're going to take your Medicare away. Right there, that's also kind of fearful because a lot of people rely on Medicare in order to get the treatment that they need. Yeah. And get the medical care that they need. So that right there is also scary. Both sides, I would say, are equally, they're equal offenders in terms of this, at putting fear in people's faces.
They're both guilty of committing those crimes of terrorizing people in order to control them.
Yep. You know who also does this? The world religions also do this as well too. I would say that most religions do. I don't know of any of them that, I mean, there's different layering of degrees. There's certain religions, evangelicals, who tend to use it in a more extreme way than others do. But I would still say that fear is still something that is in most religions, even if it's not like fear of the deity that they're worshiping, but maybe fear of being ostracized from the community.
Well, fear of death is a huge motivator. And especially for religion, I mean, that's
why we
the
have
easy place,
religions.
easy avenue, exactly, is to really tell you, okay, this is what we believe is going to happen after you die. And for a lot of people, that's comforting. It's, I mean, for me, for the longest time, and this is something that just watching The Good Place this last week, and we're recording this on January 26th of 2020. So this is the second to last episode of The Good Place, where they get to the good place, the actual good place. And the way out is non-existence. Is afterwards is just done. You're not existing anymore. And that for me was the hugely like blocked area of my brain, was that I'm terrified of. I'm terrified of not existing. And I don't know why. Like, not that I am like so important to humanity or so important to anything ever, but just my non-existence is terrifying to me.
Yeah, I mean, for most people it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why a lot of people will still cling to a religion even if they don't believe a bulk of, you know, what they stand for.
Yeah. And I mean, my energy continues. I know that it doesn't dissipate because that's thermodynamics. It's physics. So, you know.
You'll just become worm food.
Yeah, I'll become a tree.
You'll become a tree. And another thing that I think also uses is fear, but I think they use fear in a good way because we've given a lot of bad examples, but this is something that can change things for the better, is climate change. A lot of people get angry about people who are so passionate about doing something about climate change because they hate the way that they put fear into people's hearts about what our planet is going to become. And they should be fearful because it's going to happen. It's happening right now. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go on a tangent about climate change.
Well, and I mean, there are things that we should be afraid of that we're not afraid of. That, you know, that should motivate us to do something. It should motivate us to get going and make
change.
This life better. Because if this is all that you have, then you should make it a pretty damn good one.
Yeah. Well, and too, I think that part of, well, this is American society. We're very selfish.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for us to do anything that is going to benefit others, especially benefit others in the long run that we might not actually live to see, like climate change, because it's hard to imagine ourselves not existing. Bring it back to your point, you know, like it's hard for us to comprehend that. But I'm the type of person that, you know, I always want to make things better for our grandkids and our great grandkids, whatever that might be. So.
Well, as of right now, we are headed towards the point of no return on global warming, on climate change.
We're closer on the doomsday clock too. They moved the thing.
Well, the reason why they moved it was for disinformation. And this is the thing, is that many people will use disinformation to make people afraid, and make them afraid in the wrong ways. It make them afraid in the way that gives them the most power, the most control over them. In other words, to perpetuate the cycles that leave them in control.
Yep. So what is something that you were afraid of in the past that you are no longer afraid of?
Death. Like, I'm terrified of not existing, but like there's parts of me that I'm like, you know what, that would be fantastic. You know, it's not that, you know, I'm going to go out and, you know,
You're
myself.
just not afraid of it. Like if it
afraid of
happens, it's like
Yeah, like what I'm afraid of more is leaving you and Peter without, my help, without, the things that I can do to make sure that your lives are better. Mm-hmm. So
that's why I got health insurance. Not health insurance, life insurance.
On me, yes.
I know when I first signed up for life insurance with Miguel, like a few years back, like it almost like creeped him out that I was like putting life insurance on him. I'm like, do you not want me to, have some kind of financial stability if you're gone?
Well, above and beyond what our company already offers for life insurance, I think is... And that's why I thought it was weird, was because our company already offers a pretty good life insurance policy on us. So
yeah, well, with what we've had to experience within this last year, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
Well,
anyway. It also feels like you're just planning my demise, but whatever.
Hey, I told you to put it on me too. Am I gonna,
Okay. Well, what are you not afraid of anymore?
Okay, let's see. Oh my gosh. There's some days where I feel like I'm afraid of everything, and then other days where I'm not afraid. Like, I'm still afraid that I am going to mess up newly formed friendships. Like, that's a very common fear that I have. But then other days, like, I am reassured, and I'm like, no, like, that's, it's not going to happen. And to be honest, if you look back at most of my friendships, if anything tore us apart, it was just time. Mm-hmm. Not for most of them, it wasn't like one big incident and that everybody threw their hands up and was like, I'm done with you. It was just, we grew apart with time. But for some reason in my head, some days I'm like, oh my gosh, like what if they took this text wrong? Or like, what if they thought I was being mean when I said this, and so I guess.
Yeah.
So I go in and out of my fears right now.
I get it. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our Saints of Show.
Yes.
So mine, I had a last minute change, but my Saints of Show are Saint Adrian and Dawn, the couple from the very beginning, for standing up for themselves, even with the threat of violence and death. And, although Adrian is ultimately killed in the altercation, you could tell that, he's like, their love is more important than the homophobic teenagers there. And I think that's a great example there of standing up to their fears rather than letting it control you.
Yep, absolutely. So my Saint of Show is Mike, and I wanted to give him the sainthood because despite what happened to them growing up, he's the only one that stayed in town. Mm-hmm. The only one. And he kind of, like, the way he says it anyway, is he felt like it was his responsibility to keep an eye on things in case it does come back. And that's a pretty big thing to take on, Like, everybody else almost ran away from their fears, and he was like, nope, I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to watch out for things.
In its own way, it was running.
It's keeping himself busy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was keeping himself insulated and trying to, face it in his own way, but like on his own terms, rather. So that's, I can see that though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And plus, I mean, he's the only, as far as we can tell, he's one of the very few people of color in that little town. So I'm sure he also has to deal with racist stuff on the daily. So there's that too.
So who were your Saints of Show for It Chapter 2? Let us know in these ways.
So you can go ahead and reach us at Facebook and Instagram at Patron Saints of Pop Culture. And then we also have a website, patronssaintsofpopculture.org.
Correct. And don't forget to review and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform.
Wow, why can't we talk today?
I have no idea. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and please come and join the conversation.
Bye.